Welcome, everyone. This is our weekly AI tinkering session. In these 40 minutes, we deep dive into one specific AI tool or feature. I'm Alex. I'm the founder of the AI Tinkerers Club. So today we are tinkering with GPTs. So these are specialized AI assistants, and anyone can build a GPT. No coding skill is required. And maybe that's why GPTs are all the rage currently. OpenAI presented them just last week, and now there are already thousands of them out there. But to be honest, most of them aren't very good. Okay. So this is what I like to do today. During the next 30 minutes, I do my best to provide you with all you need to kickstart your GPT journey and start creating your own GPTs today or maybe tomorrow. Are we good? Excellent. So before we start, a sneak peek at our next event. We will be tinkering with Session Lab AI features to generate outline of activities for workshops. It works great. And I'm super excited to do that with Karin and Eduardo from Session Lab. So it's going to be 40 minutes and it's going to be next Thursday. It's going to be, by the way, kicking a new series of tinkering sessions focused on facilitation tools. So Miro, Mural, Storms, and maybe some others like Figma and Butter. Okay, so I hope that you're going to be there and you can register on the platform of the club. So today, we are talking with GPTs and we're going to start, as always, with a quick demo. Okay. So here on the right side of my screen, I'm going to open ChatGPT. And there is now a specific page that is called My GPTs with now the infamous Create a GPT button. Okay, so how does it work? First of all, quick definition. GPTs, it's the latest feature from OpenAI for ChatGPT. And they are what we call specialized AI assistants. They can be created without any coding expertise, which makes the barrier to create one very low. And what's very exciting about GPTs is that they really inherit the multimodal capabilities of ChatGPT. They can create images, they can analyze files, they can analyze images, generate code on the fly, and run the code in a sandbox environment. And they can even communicate with other apps, Notion, Trello, you name it. Before we dive into how to build one, I have a quick demo of a GPT that I built just for you. So this GPT is called Decision Maker, and it's based on what is called multiple criteria evaluation. Okay. Something that guides you through the process of taking a decision using several criteria so that you can evaluate different alternatives and take your decision. So you know that right now ChatGPT is quite unstable. So we won't do the demo in real time. It's going to take too much time and you never know what's going to happen. So I've prepared it before. Okay. So when you launch the GPT, I told it, I want to decide where to go on holidays. And it asked the first question about what destinations I'm considering. And here I wanted to play a little bit with the GPT to test how it was. And I said, no ideas, just give me three healthy, sporty destinations. So it offered me three choices. But of course, the main use case is that I select my own alternatives. So Chamonix in France is in the mountain. Then you have Costa Rica, then New Zealand. And I say, okay. And then when you do a multiple criteria evaluation, one of the most important things is picking the criteria to evaluate. So it proposes 7 criteria. And then it tells me that I should select 3 to make it quick and easy. So I select 1 and 2. adventure and natural beauty. And I add one that wasn't on the list, that is carbon footprint. And as usual, the GPT is very positive, excellent choices. And then it creates custom scale for each one of the criteria, which is also a best practice when you're doing the stuff. So you see, I'm having a conversation with the GPT, but this conversation is very controlled and it's using a very specific process. Not if I had used the normal GPT, it wouldn't have used this specific process. So then I do the scoring, first criteria, the second criteria, I ask it to score by itself, and again. So that at the end, I have a table with all the different score for each one of the criteria and a total score for each one of the alternatives. And then it's using the code interpreter. It creates code on the fly to plot a bar chart for me. And then it shows me the bar chart. So now I can see that the most interesting alternative is this one. And once it has done that, it creates an image for my future destination once the decision will be implemented. Okay. So this is an example of quite a sophisticated PT. It's sophisticated because the prompt was sophisticated with a very specific process. So that was one demo of what you can do with a GPT. Okay. But really, you can have GPTs for quite everything. You could build role-playing games. You could create logos, styling images, craft content, of course, do a brainstorming on a very specific topic. You could ask it, create a GPT to help you follow a design thinking process. Really, whatever you can think of. But the fundamental key to building a great GPT is probably to understand one thing. You have to create a specialist. Okay. This is where it makes sense because ChatGPT is a generalist and you're going to build several different kinds of specialists. So this specialization can be achieved by leverage several things: the knowledge, the actions, and a well-crafted prompt. So let me show you that now. I'm going to show you how you can create a GPT. So here you see I have my GPT I created myself. So I have a new menu and I can edit the GPT. So first thing is that you have a first feature that is called the assistant. So basically, they built a GPT to help you build a GPT. And you can build a GPT, it's asking you questions, you answer the questions, and in the end, you're gonna get a GPT done for you. But I'm not going to show you that because first, it's very easy to use. You just have to answer the questions. And second, it's not really good. Okay. It's good enough for very simple GPTs or for doing something fun. Talk to me like you're a pirate or something, or answer me in 5 words max. But if you want to do something very specific, just like I've shown you with the decision maker, it's not good enough. So I'm going to show you the second panel. And the second panel is where you can set up everything. So first, you have a name, you have a description. This is only for the future store to be able to quickly understand what your GPT is for. So the next thing that is very important are the instructions. So instructions are where you are going to describe who is your assistant, what it is task, and what is the behavior that you would like from this assistant. So look at that. This is my instruction. This is the only thing I had to write to get the behavior that I've just demonstrated. And notice that I'm using a structured prompt. It's also called a mega prompt. Okay. And By the way, it's really important that you master the art of prompt engineering if you want to build a complex GPT. And if you haven't done so, you can watch the crash course that we did a couple of weeks ago. It's in the recording section of the club. Okay, so here I describe the context. You are facilitating a decision-making process. I give it a role, which is important to guide it because now it knows better the kind of context and the kind of tone of voice that it should have. Then the task is concisely described in one sentence, but that very important. I tell that it needs to follow the steps and respect the specs. So then I describe the steps. So this is my secret sauce. This is how, as a facilitator and as a consultant, I facilitate my multiple criteria decision-making sessions with my clients. Okay. I didn't tell you that it's a simplified version of the real GPT that I'm building. So step by step, so that I'm really guiding the GPT to be really good and to enforce a very specialized process. Then I give it an example. Again, I'm guiding it. And one of the most important things in the spec is that I want that when it selects the criteria, they don't overlap each other's. It's very important. And it's called MISI, mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. And then the format. Okay, so that's the prompt. That's the instruction. And I really encourage you to use mega prompts. It's much more efficient. And also it's easier to debug. Then you have the conversation starters. So the conversation starters are a great way to help your user understand what your assistant can do. Because look, when I start the assistant, I have these conversation starters here. So I can very quickly, I understand the kind of decision that I can do with this tool. Okay. Select a candidate for a job. And now it's going to start doing its conversation. Okay. Starting by asking which would be the candidate and which is the first step. Inquire about the decision and alternatives to be evaluated. Okay. So that was the conversation starter. Now, on to the really cool stuff. Knowledge. Knowledge is one of the key features. Knowledge is the way to augment the assistant with knowledge from outside the model. When the large language model is trained, it is trained with a fixed data set, very big. That's why it's very good at a lot of things. But now you can think of adding some stuff that is very specialized, either in-depth specialized knowledge or private information. You could put, if it's a GPT you are not going to share, you can put a lot of stuff about yourself so that the assistant can give you some better tips and advice. So this private info means that you can build GPTs just for you or so that it can have knowledge of your life, context, etc. And in-depth knowledge would be great for specialized assistant like the one that we have right now. I have a little question for you, a little exercise on the chat. Can you tell me what kind of knowledge I could upload for my decision maker GPT? Try to think a little bit of what would be the cool stuff that we could upload in the GPT to augment its knowledge and to make it even better. Any idea? A SWOT matrix. Why a SWOT matrix? Reviews by well-respected travel journals. Okay, so here, team, the problem with that is that your augmented knowledge will be only for decision about travel destinations. And the GPT is supposed to be very able to deal with selecting a candidate for a job, help me decide about what present I'm going to offer to Isabel, my wife. So yeah, that would be very difficult to augment it that way. Decision-making framework, that would be great, Lorraine. All the different sets of criteria that works very well together. So if, for example, one of them would be effort and impact matrix, that you could upload hundreds of framework that works very well so that GPT has some cool example of set of criteria that are missing. And research about decision-making models and process would be also very cool at, as long as it doesn't interfere with the process that you want to implement. So you see that it's not as easy as it seems to think the kind of thing that you can put in the knowledge. And that's part of building a great GPT is to find how you are going to augment its knowledge. Then technically, it's just a way of clicking upload files, putting the PDF in it, and you're good. There are some discussions. I think it's not sure because it's not clear that you can upload up to 500 megabytes of data, which is a lot if it's text data. By the way, you can also upload Excel files, CSV files, so statistics and data. Okay. Next one are capabilities. So capabilities are basically the tools from OpenAI that you can use. Do you want it to be able to browse the web? It's useful if you need it to grab up-to-date information. In my case, for example, the user could tell it about an alternative with a URL. For example, if I have a candidate decision to make, I could put the URL of a profile, and it would be able to analyze it. The coder interpreter is very important if you want it to analyze data, regression, statistic analysis, and also to generate the charts. Okay, so that's the capabilities. Capabilities are tools that are made by OpenAI, but with actions, these are additional capabilities that you can add on top of the one that we have just discussed. Okay. Basically, you can have your assistant communicate with other tools. For example, I could send the final report of a decision to a Notion page. Or I could send all the set of criteria to a Storms workshop so that then other people could collaborate to take the decision. So you can imagine a lot of things. The only problem is that this is the one that can be a little bit tricky if you are not a coder. Okay. If you're a coder, you can build custom actions. Basically, you can do whatever you want to communicate with your own software. If you are not, my strong suggestion is to explore Zapier actions. So you might know Zapier, which is a way to connect different applications. Well, Zapier has built a specific stuff so that ChatGPT can speak with them and then they can interact with the other tools. So if you are really interested about that, I have prepared a demo for that in the tinkering part of our session. Okay. The last thing is sharing. And you see here, when I'm going to save it, I can decide if I save it only for me, if I save it privately, but people with the link will be able to access it. And oh, by the way, I didn't tell you, but if you flash the QR code, you should be able to access the decision maker GPT so that you can test it on your own. And what I could do, where is the URL? I don't have it. I'm going to send it later if you want to test it. And the last thing is public. And public right now doesn't do anything. It's just that when there will be the GPT store that everybody is talking about, we're going to make millions of dollars thanks to the store. Oh my God, you're going to make millions of dollars if you are ahead of the tens of thousands of GPTs that are going to be flooding the gates of the App Store when it's coming in. Okay. So this is how it works. Okay. So if you step back, building a simple GPT is very straightforward. Okay. You create it. You had an instruction. Then you pick your conversation starters. You think a little bit of the kind of knowledge. You build the knowledge and you upload it. You decide the capabilities that you need. And if you want to go even further, you create some actions either by using Zapier actions or actions that are already done for you. Or if you're a coder, you can create your own action for the GPT to interact with your own software. Okay. So basically, it can take 5 minutes. That if you do it in 5 minutes, the GPT is not going to be great because there are lots of decisions to make. And this is the next slide and the last slide that I want to show you. And it's probably one of the most important because technically it's very easy. But now, and all these best practices are even more important if you're going to share your GPT with others. First thing, you need to treat the GPT like a product. You need to design them with your users in mind. You need to understand how they can solve a real problem. And so you design it, in fact. Second thing, you really need to craft the best possible prompt for the initial instructions, the ones that are here. Okay. You should check out the prompt engineering crash course that I recorded a few weeks ago, because if you are using a structured prompt like I am, it's going to be much easier for you to get good results and to debug your GPT. Okay. Then the most important thing to answer is this question. Imagine someone else is building a GPT to solve exactly the same issue that you are. Okay. How are you going to make a difference? Imagine someone else is going to build a decision maker, how my decision maker is going to be better. Okay. And basically, you can make a difference with 4 levels. The first one is guiding the AI with a unique and comprehensive step section in your instructions. Okay. All of that can be your secret sauce. Maybe you're using a process that no one else is using or very few people know about. Okay, it's your expertise. Second thing, the knowledge. You really have to think hard about the knowledge. You need to create a PDF or an Excel file with the best and most unique custom knowledge possible. Either private if it's for you, or in-depth knowledge if it's a specialized PT like this one, like the decision maker. The third thing, you need to extend it with actions if it makes sense, of course. But it's really one way that you will be able to differentiate your GPT with the GPT from someone else. Okay. And some people think that having your own software on the side and connecting the GPT will be probably the best way to create a lot of value. And finally, think how you might leverage all the OpenAI tools, image analysis, code interpreter, image generation, etc., and use that to create the best experience possible. Also, don't go overboard with this one. For example, the image at the end of my decision making example, probably not going to make it to the final version. That was cool for the demo, but doesn't bring any value, right? I was having fun with it. So there's a question by team on how you might use the actions. So typically the actions is you're going to tell the GPT, maybe you build a GPT to craft a post, okay, for my blog, and you get the final version of your post. And maybe you want to send it directly to your Notion workspace to store it before, or maybe you want to send it directly to your WordPress application so that it is published, or maybe you have something that generate ideas, and you want to send these ideas directly into a Trello board or whatever. This is how you're gonna extend with actions. Yeah. Now I want to talk about the building process. Keep in mind that your GPT will be used by many people with many questions that you won't have even considered. So your GPT has to be robust, should be able to handle edge cases. So you need to iterate, test, iterate, test, iterate. Especially knowledge retrieval. It's a bit of a black box. I don't think it's really good yet. In my experience, because I did a lot of tinkering in the last days, it's very difficult to control when and how the GPT is going to access the information within your within your documents. So be really careful, really make sure that it's using the data in your document. And one way to do it is to specify in the instruction that it should use the document in the knowledge from the custom knowledge. But sometimes, even if you do that, it doesn't work. So maybe they're going to improve that. Finally, if you want to protect your secret sauce, you need to safeguard your prompt and knowledge because it's important to understand that it's very easy if you don't do anything in just I can ask the GPT to give me your custom instructions. Okay. So I will know exactly what is within your GPT. And also I can ask it for to download the knowledge file. So don't put right now, please don't put any private information in your GPTs if you are going to share them with others. In the next bit, I can show you how you can protect it because there's a way to do that. Before I do that, very quickly, an advertisement. I'm going to do a GPT bootcamp, 2 by 2 days, where we're going to create and market very effective GPTs. Okay, so if you are interested, again, I'm going to give you the link after the session, or you can QR code, but there's going to be a waiting list because I want it quite small. So there will be a limited number of seats. Okay. So now we have a little bit of time to tinker together. And these are the kind of things that we can do. And very quickly, I'm going to launch a poll. Okay. So what would you like to see next? We'd like to see how I hacked the knowledge files, how you can protect a prompt, how you can set up Zapier actions, how you can brainstorm use case, discuss best ways to leverage knowledge, share your ideas. So the first thing that you'd like to see is how to set up a Zapier action, which is the most complex of the list. So I understand that you want to see that. So Zapier actions with Zapier. Okay. So it's a quick guide of using Zapier AI actions with ChatGPT and your custom GPT. So what's really cool with Zapier actions is it's solving a complex problem. You might not be aware if you're not a coder that when a GPT is shared, it's handling the fact that it's going to ask the different users to connect their own Slack or their own Trello or their own application. Okay. So it's really cool because you can share your GPT and Zapier action is going to handle everything about authentication. I'm going to apologize there. I cannot show you how it works because currently there is a bug in the authentication mechanism, which means that I cannot show you it in action. However, you should be able to grasp the implementation principles. Again, it may seem a little bit complex if you are not familiar with coding, but if you follow the steps and it's going to be recorded, by the way, it should be absolutely manageable. Here, this well, and here, there would be a button to add an action. Okay. And I'm not going to do it because it's going to be empty. And I'm going to show you the one that I created. Okay. So you see that here, there is what is called a schema. Okay. And I didn't have to invent the schema. Don't worry. In fact, what you have to do is you paste this URL here. And this URL, you can find it on the doc of Zapier action. And then you click on import the URL and it's going to put this text. Okay. So once you do that, it's the only thing you need to do on this panel. So you go here and you save your action. Once it is saved, you can go outside. Then you need to create your action in Zapier. So you need a Zapier account, of course. Okay. So when I click on this link and I'm logged into Zapier, here is where I can add a new action. And here I've created an action to send a message to Slack. And I set up like I would with a Zap. And basically what I say here is send a message to Slack, and the variable is the message, and I specify on which channel is going to send it. Okay. And the one thing that is important is below here, the action name, because ChatGPT will be smart enough, even if you don't say send to Slack, but maybe you're going to say, I want to put a message to someone who is on Slack. It's going to recognize that it is this action that it needs to trigger. Once you do that, you have on the doc an instruction template. So let me get back. PT. You get back to the configuration. And here, look at that. Here, I have copy and pasted something that is from the website of Zapier, which is a custom instruction that GPT is going to use to understand that when I say send a message to Slack, it needs to activate the action. Basically, it's all. So you copy and paste the template, and at the end of the template, you put the name of the Zapier action, and you put a link that you get again from the action panel. Okay. So I recap. You open the configuration panel, you create a new action, you paste your schema here that you get from the Zapier website. Once you do that, you create an action, the different actions in Zapier. Once you have created the action, you copy and paste this bit of text and you customize with the different actions with a name and a link. And once you do that, if I say something like send a message to Slack, hi, it's going to be able to understand that it needs to activate the action mechanism. Here I can show you, I cannot show you because the sign in doesn't work. It's big. But basically that's how you do it. It's already 51. It's the official end time. So if you want to leave, just say hello and bye-bye. But for the one who want to stay, I'm here for the next 20 minutes so we can continue tinkering and we can continue have a more casual conversation.
Thank you, Alex.
And Alex, I tagged the questions in the chat for you with the icon question mark. So that way you could see them.
So first of all, is there any pressing question right now?
I liked your idea of using a mega prompt to build a GPT. And I was wondering what categories you had. I remember you had like certain things in brackets with details underneath. Could you share that?
Yeah, well, and it's also in the crash course recording.
Okay.
You have everything that is explained, but basically, I think it's quite extensive because I don't always use all of them. So here you have
Persona tasks. Okay.
step examples, specs, and format. In the specs, you could also have the do not put emojis in your LinkedIn post, something like that.
Thanks.
This makes a real difference. First of all, the prompts are much more powerful and effective for the AI to follow. And for you, it's easier to debug. Also, I'm using variables so that I refer to some part like that.
Yeah.
So all of that is explained in the crash course. You should really have a look at it.
Do that. Thanks.
Steve, you wanted to say something, I think.
Yes, it'd be good just to have a bit of a thought around the use cases because they could be endless. But as business professionals, what should we be thinking? Immediate sort of personal tinkering and thinking, oh, what might be useful as an individual. Beyond that, what's the business use case for this? Internal products, potentially commercial. You were talking about the the store? Could you really make money from these things?
It's very difficult to discuss use case because I think there are thousands of
Yeah.
potential use case. It really depends on what you want to do. I want to separate two kind of use case first. You have the private personal use. For example, I am doing these tinkering sessions every week. I have to write down a lot of announcements that always follow the same format. Okay. So I could take all my previous announcements, put them in a PDF, then create a prompt so that it generates all the I explain the context, and I need an announcement for LinkedIn. I need one for the platform. I need one from the newsletter, and they don't have the same length. And here you have the example in the PDF. And so that next week, when we do the one on Session Lab, I just have to tell the prompt, now it's Session Lab. Have a look on the web of what is Session Lab and craft all my announcements. And that way I'm going to get everything, 90% of the work done because it's recurrent and it's using private information. So that's the first category, private stuff. All the things that you do on a recurring basis that are annoying, that you can automate a little bit, a use case for a GPT. And then there are the GPTs for others that maybe you can try to find to make money out of it, or maybe it can be a lead magnet. This is exactly why I want to do a bootcamp that is create and market, because it's not, you can make money with a GPT not only by selling it on the App Store, future App Store, but also as using it as a lead magnet or as a way to enrich your offering, etc., etc. So in this case, it has to be something very specialized. And this is really what I try to explain. You have to embed your knowledge within the GPT to make it different from all the others. Okay. I've already seen hundreds, no, maybe I'm exaggerating, tens of GPTs to craft LinkedIn posts. Okay. So if you create another one, what would be the difference? Maybe the process that you're going through to create the draft. Maybe in the knowledge base, you're going to have some great example of LinkedIn posts that work very well. Maybe you have a very specific framework to create hook for the LinkedIn post. So this is how you're going to make a difference.
I suppose just in terms of challenging the concept is that the amount of GPTs as an individual, you'll go, I might use one or two regularly, but I'm not going to be buying into. I'll just go back to ChatGPT. Thanks very much, because that just about does what I need it to do, rather than seeking out, I don't know, 20 GPTs that are going to do 20 separate tasks for me better, slightly better.
It really depends if you gain time. Again, for recurring tasks, I'm quite fed up of copy and pasting my prompts. And here you can upload the knowledge file, which you cannot do easily within ChatGPT. You have the actions. So all of that combined makes something that is fairly different from the plain use of ChatGPT. Also, there is another use case, which is sharing with others from your team. Okay. Not for selling, but you have a team of specialists who are doing report analyzing data, and all the reports have the same structure. Well, create a GPT for them to divide the time to create the workshop by 3. All of them will be using the same GPT. They don't have to master prompt engineering to use it. They just have to answer the questions, and it's going to do the report.
I can share my own perspective. Like the way I see it, Steve, is I'm trying to be a one-woman business. And so I can create a GPT that could be like my business coach. I can create a GPT that is my social media manager. I can create a GPT that is just like copywriter for all of my email sequences, and just give them the task in the morning and just let them run. And then I don't have to hire like a team. So that's how I will see it in terms of specialization, and just choose the ones that I need. And a question I have for you, Alex, but I have to go, unfortunately, but we can think on it next time. Can you teach GPTs to be you?
So that's a huge question, but
I know it could be a whole session.
The knowledge files are the way to go. I'm not sure they won't be you. You are not replicable. You are
well, the Asthma AI.
Yeah, it's going to be Asthma 0.1 or 0.01. But anyway, you can try with a knowledge file to upload your life. That would be a huge undertaking, huge
Yeah,
task.
I am in a different program that talks about AIs and stuff, and they are able to create their own AI. They say that pay them and then they will create your own AI GPT, basically a chat. So basically people can talk to you. They will use the same tone that you're using, the things, but then definitely you have to
Th-
fill out a whole Google sheet.
There is no
with all-
reason that you cannot do exactly the same with ChatGPT for
Exactly.
free.
Now I don't have to pay them anymore and I can just use a GPT for
But
myself.
maybe they have a methodology on a way to document your life that works.
Yeah,
also.
they have an Excel sheet, that Google sheet that they put together with all the questions and how you can answer them. So that way you're teaching the GPT how to talk like you. This is more like if you want to create like a chat, a chat capability in your website, for example. It's like, hey, tell me more about what you offer. What type of facilitation do you do? And then it automatically talks to them. So I don't have to jump on a call unless it is a really good lead. So basically it's filtering people that are just there for information. So
That's the extreme use case.
yeah, exactly.
I
I
think
always
they
go
are
extreme.
much easier GPT to build first.
Oh, I'm sure. Awesome. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the session.
Yeah,
I'll see you
as
next
I
week.
said, you can leave at any time right now. It's the casual part of the discussion. Bye-bye. Thank you for being here. Eric, I see that you're staying here. Do you have any questions, suggestions, whatever?
I did just post a quite lengthy question. This is a great session, by the way, so thank you. I'm really excited to be here. As I was tinkering with my first GPT, I dove into maybe doing too much work with it and then came back at the end saying, can I pick up here as an end user with this context? It was late in the day, middle of the night, what have you. And it basically gave me the standard as a GPT. I'm not going to remember this stuff as we come back and pick up tomorrow. So I just wanted to share my learning. Is that correct? That as an end user consuming the GPT, that I really don't have state or memory that I can work over multiple sessions.
So each time the way it works is that you have what is called threads. So each conversation is a thread.
Mhm.
And each thread is totally autonomous. Okay. So if you start a first conversation and another one, there is absolutely no exchange of data between the two conversations. So that's the first thing. The second thing is if you stay within the first information, you have what you call the context window. Okay. The context window is the technical term for the memory of the bot. Okay. And one of the things that was announced is that the context window is going to be much, much bigger. It's not clear if it's only for the API or also for ChatGPT, but for the API, it's 128K, which is much more than what we had 10 months ago. It goes so fast. So basically, this is the memory of the chat. Okay. And you're going to have a conversation. He's going to remember everything. And now it goes like that. Okay.
Yeah.
So if it was not an optimized bot, it would forget everything at the beginning, like that. Okay. But in fact, it's much smarter than that. And what it does is that before forgetting, it's going to summarize the first bit of the information.
Mhm.
Okay. And so that instead of doing that, it's going to do pop because everything will be summarized before. So now you can continue the conversation. Puff, summarize. Puff, summarize. The only thing is that when you summarize, it's like compressing a file. Okay. An image, you're losing some detail. You're losing some information. Okay. So it's not perfect and it's not going to remember very well the beginning of the conversation. This is why it's very difficult without using any specific technique to create a book with ChatGPT. Because when you're going to write chapter 7, it's not going to remember chapter 1. So you have to use some techniques and some. Salut, Tim. You want to say a word, Tim?
Sure. Hello.
Hey, Tim, I've started tinkering with a Think Better GPT.
I noticed. I'm very excited.
Tim
I
has
want to consult myself.
Tim is a great writer, and he's written a book about creative problem solving called Productive Thinking. and I'm going to try to build a GPT for him.
Cool. I'm very intrigued. See how it
Me
flies.
too. Me too. Me too.
Yeah. Cool. Alex, this was wonderful. Thank you so much. I will probably see you next week.
I think we have a
Bye.
meeting next Monday.
We do. We
Yeah.
do.
Bye, team.
Ciao.
Okay. The last three of us. So Eric, yes, the memory is that it's gonna lose a little bit of the detail from the beginning of the conversation. But you can, if you stay in the same conversation, it's gonna have some reminiscence of
Right. Right.
the beginning of the conversation. Oh, we have
Okay.
Steven with us too.
I was reminded of when you were using the example of how to choose a travel destination.
Yeah.
Well, it reminded me 30 years ago, my wife and I owned a travel agency. And it was then that I was discovering the internet. And also at that time, it was, and then HTTP, the websites, because before that, there weren't any websites. But I was telling people what was coming, people in the travel business, that someday they would be able to choose their own destinations and they wouldn't have to use a travel agent. But they didn't believe me. So anyway, and now, of course, people can choose and get their own tickets and print them and everything else. And now that's going to be replaced. The idea of where should I go?
Yeah.
You know, and which is what a lot of times the travel agent would advise. Here's the pros and cons to this location, so forth. So it was that aspect, the advice
So
aspect.
this is a great example of the one who's going to win the GPT for picking a travel destination are not going to be people like us. It's going to be the one who already have the big websites, and they're going to create a GPT, and they're going to have some specific actions so that they will be able to look up the destinations to augment the knowledge of the bot. So this is exactly what I was explaining, is that the winners for a lot of GPTs will be people who have something else on the outside of ChatGPT, and they will be able to connect both. But personally, I'm already thinking of building a GPT that connects with Storm. Storms is my startup. It's a collaborative application, and I'm already thinking of different ways. Typically, the decision maker could then say to the user, "Hey, do you want to take that decision in a group? You can do it with Storms. And I created a link for you. Just click on the link and get it to Storms." So it will be a kind of a tractor to getting into Storms.
Yeah. But but anyway, the decision in that decision-making process of where do I want to travel?
Yeah.
That's the first thing when we would ask, I want to go on vacation. What do you want to do? Go skiing? Do you want to go swimming?
Yeah.
So all the stuff about the cheapest price is later, but the first questions are, where do you want to, what are your desires?
Yeah.
Where do you want to go? And then find out.
You could absolutely, now, before it was very difficult to build a bot like that. Now, either with a GPT or with what they call the Assistant API, which is basically the way to reproduce GPT in your own app, you absolutely can make a chatbot to assist someone in creating its travel. That's crazy. That was totally impossible 5 years ago. It was possible, but it was fun and not useful. Now it's possible to do something great, asking some very precise questions, advising, etc., etc. But again, the one who will win would be the one who has some very specialized knowledge on the destinations, what's good, what's bad, the prices, data about reviews and stuff like that. This is how the GPT is going to be much better than the one that I could build myself, for example.
At one point, all the different airlines had their own websites. So you would have to go to this airline and get a price, that one and get a price, or that one and get a price. And then finally they said, hey, let's come up with a website that does all that for you. And now, yes, there'll be something, the GPT, travel GPT will go out and do the same thing and bring it all back and distill it for you first, of course, and then do that. Where should I go? And yeah. It's very exciting. But so there won't be a need for a personal travel agent, right? Because they'll already be one, like you said, somebody will figure this, some large Expedia or some travel website have this.
If they are not working on that right now, the IT boss should be fired. Daniel, you are very
Yeah.
quiet.
Yeah, just listening in and trying to catch as much as I can. It's very interesting as usual.
Any idea of GPT that we could build?
Yeah, only for myself to upload a knowledge file about indoor rowing to help me with my training.
Well,
That
I've
was
seen
what I was thinking about.
Yeah, I've seen several GPTs about training sessions, physical training sessions, analyzing that, creating a training plan on the fly, stuff like that. It's typically very interesting because you could use the code interpreter to analyze the data from previous sessions. Also, now that you have all this heart rate data for a runner, for example, it could absolutely do some stuff about analyzing your performance and then in sharing a training plan for the week after.
Yeah, something like that. I will think about it.
Okay. Eric, anything else?
You saw me moving. I move when I think, I believe. Just quickly to the point you just talked about your rowing, I've got a multi-gym right next to me here, and I think better sometimes as I'm doing something like a set on my gym, and I want to hop up and note it down, or I've got my little daybook app on my phone I'm tapping on, but I guess I'm looking for one idea was to drive my timing of my reps and my sets a little bit more smartly maybe than just counting down so much time for the reps and then resting for 45 seconds or what have you. But anyway, I'm excited about the idea of kicking around some of that. So I don't have to focus on where am I changing weights? No, am I doing something next? I'm just staying in the zone with my creativity while it's telling me what to do. I have not yet, I'm going to tinker today with generating code and promoting it somewhere. I've signed up for a couple of products. I can't even think of the name of them right now with some UX mock-ups and generation. I no longer have a website or a domain even to promote to, but I'm going to pick back up on that. I was wondering if you had any recommendations, even just by name only, of a decent pipeline that's out there that I could try generating code and then putting somewhere to see my version of a hello world experiment just to complete that thread.
So tell me again what you'd like to achieve in 2 or 3 steps. What would be the 2 or 3 steps?
Yeah, given that I have something I want to generate in my work with GPT, anything at all, just to post a picture on a page, an image on a page,
Okay.
and then generating the code and putting that in an environment that I can view, and then ideally
What do you mean by generating a code? I don't get that.
literally the JavaScript or the HTML or whatever, it's going to be a page, an application, quote unquote.
First of all, you have to divide the fact of building a GPT and just doing a great prompt, because you could do a prompt that goes from a wireframe to an HTML page.
Mhm.
So you would upload your wireframe that you do by hand, and then you ask ChatGPT to analyze it with vision, and then it's going to tell you to give you improvements ideas, and then you tell it to generate the HTML code for that, and it's going to do it, and maybe add a little bit of interactivity with JavaScript, and then you're going to ask all the code, and that's the first part. Then you can try it manually to create the website. That's the first part.
Okay.
And then if you want to go further, you could build a GPT for that. You could add some advanced knowledge of UX design, maybe. Then an action toward an external website. Maybe you have some website where you can put some snippet of codes. Maybe they have an API. So you need to find a service with an API so that you can try for an action within your GPT to directly send the code to GitHub. Maybe you could do it with GitHub top pages, for example. I don't know if you're technical or not technical at all.
I used
Yeah.
to do a lot of coding back in the day in C, and then I went offline and I've done e-commerce development for my wife in various products, but I'm product manager for 25 years since then. So I'm not currently coding, but I can knock around.
Okay. Basically, there is a possibility of having a GPT that goes from a wireframe that you upload to a GitHub page that
Okay.
is perfectly valid. But that's not the simplest project to start with. Again,
Okay.
it's
That's
like
fine.
recreating an ASMA 2.0, 3.0.
Mm.
That's probably one of the most complex things to do right now. But I would really do, if you want to tinker, try to find a task that you do every day or every week, a writing task or
Mm. Mm.
thinking task. Or writing tasks are probably the best to start tinkering. Something you write down a lot and then you send it to another. Yeah, something like that.
Okay. I'm writing usually something like a jobs to be done context. I'm in that set. Who's the persona? What am I trying to do? What are their goals?
And that's a perfect use case for a prompt, and you can turn it into a GPT or not.
Work very well.
Yeah, as soon as you have a process and a framework, you can use ChatGPT to help you within that process, so that first of all, it will guide you, and then you will input your ideas, and you will ask it to assess your ideas and maybe to add some more ideas. This is typically a great way to collaborate with an AI. You give it a process, you give your inputs, and you use the AI to elevate your thinking. That's a perfect use case for a prompt. And if you do that a lot, and if you can augment it with knowledge, or if you want to connect it with external application, you can also transform your prompt into a GPT. But GPT is not, GPT is, if you're just looking for a prompt for a one-time job, you don't need GPT. You just need to use ChatGPT and build the prompt for the task you're using. As it starts to change if you need to do it in a recurring way, if you need to share it with someone, if you need to make money with it, if you need to augment it with knowledge and connect it with actions. Because right now, there is no way to use an action outside of a GPT, which is a pity because before we had the plugins, and now it has been replaced by the actions, but the actions are only available through a GPT. So you cannot use it within the generic. You cannot say within a generic ChatGPT thread, you cannot say send this idea to Trello, to my email, or to my calendar. Before, with a plugin, you could.
I just saw, to tie this up as my last comment, I just saw your event with Jim Callback coming up, and I'm really excited about that.
Which event?
I think it's in December.
Oh, the
With
one on Mural?
From Euro, yes.
Yeah. Excellent.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So we are starting a series. Daniel, I hope you will like that. A series of tinkering sessions, Mural, Session Lab, Mural, Miro in January, Storms, the best, and others. Okay.
Will be really interesting. Looking forward to that.
A quick question, Alex.
Yeah.
Getting back to got me thinking about how to use ChatGPT, a travel ChatGPT. But
yeah,
that can be applied, of course, to many areas. But the idea being that so when I said, oh, this will help you decide where you want to go. But if there's more than one person, and this happened a lot with our travel agency. So one person would come in and say, we want to go. My husband said to go ahead and plan it. Go ahead. And so we spent a lot of time with the wife or whomever.
I know what you're going to say.
And then you go back to the husband. No, I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
Like, you should have figured that out before we did that. So even before where are the good places to go, if you have more than one person, the idea of consensus. So what can you use a GPT for consensus? I know there's Read AI. I use Read AI on Zoom as an API. So I know, but that's not a GPT though. It's artificial intelligence, but so I guess, how do you reach consensus on the goal first?
So you could absolutely design a consensus process consensus reaching process. The big problem you will have is right now, ChatGPT is not collaborative at all. It's you and the AI, only one person and the AI, and it doesn't differentiate. You cannot have two other people. So maybe that would be a good tinkering session. Maybe you could try a prompt where
That's the hardest part of all.
you have to indicate who is speaking, the wife or the husband. Anyway, you could try, but this is also where some people are going to build some collaborative software that use AI. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you very much for this conversation. That was very interesting, and I like to do it that way too. So I'm going to keep that option to stay after the end.
Okay. Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
very much.
Thanks a lot. Have a nice evening.
Bye bye,
Thank you.
everybody. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.